My name is Ashley, and at 32, I've spent the last decade building my career as a manager at Preston and Associates. While my younger sisters Sarah and Emma were busy starting their families, I was climbing the corporate ladder. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but sometimes I wonder if I missed out on something along the way. No husband, no kids, just me and my corner office with a view of the city. It was a regular Tuesday morning when my phone rang. Sarah's name flashed across the screen, and I answered while sorting through a stack of reports on my desk. "Hey Ash," Sarah's voice chirped through the speaker. At 26, my youngest sister had always been the bubbly one. "Got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" I shuffled some papers aside, half listening as I reviewed quarterly numbers. "So, you know Mom's turning 60 in 2 months, right?" She paused for effect. "Well, we're planning something special, and we need everyone to chip in." That got my attention. "Okay, how much are we talking about?" When Sarah named the figure, I nearly choked on my coffee. It was more than I'd spent on my last vacation, which, come to think of it, was 3 years ago. "I know it's a lot," Sarah rushed to add, "but it's for Mom, you know?" No, it's fine," I said, already pulling up my banking app. "I'll transfer it right now." "Great. Oh, and one more thing, make sure you take a week off work for the celebration. Don't plan anything else for that time, okay?" The next few weeks flew by in a blur of meetings and deadlines. I'd occasionally wonder what my sisters were planning with all that money, but whenever I asked, they'd brush me off with vague responses. Eventually, work took over, and Mom's birthday slipped to the back of my mind. Then came the Saturday dinner. We all gathered at our parents' house, Mom and Dad, my sisters, Aunt Susan and her kids, my cousins Michael and Rachel. The familiar chaos of family dinner surrounded us, Dad telling his same old jokes, Mom fussing over everyone's plates, the usual stuff. That's when Sarah dropped her bomb. "So," she said, pushing her peas around her plate with calculated casualness, "we've finally got everything arranged for Mom's birthday. We're all going to spend a week at Mountain Pine Resort." The table erupted in excited chatter. Mom was beaming, Dad was already talking about hitting the slopes, and my sisters were discussing which ski runs they wanted to try. "Why didn't anyone tell me earlier?" I asked, feeling a bit left out. "I don't even have a ski suit, and there's barely any time to get one now." The table got quiet. Too quiet. Mom cleared her throat, and I felt my stomach drop before she even opened her mouth. "Actually, honey," she said, with that tone she used when she was about to ask for a favor she knew I couldn't refuse, "we were hoping you could do us all a huge favor and watch the kids while we're there." I stared at my family gathered around the dinner table, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was all a joke. But the silence stretched on, broken only by the soft clink of silverware against plates. "You want me to watch the kids?" I finally managed to say. "All 5 of them?" My mind started counting them off automatically, Emma's toddler Jason, Sarah's baby girl Lucy, cousin Michael's twins Tom and Anna, and Rachel's son Pete. 5 kids under the age of 7. "Well, you're so good with them," Mom said, as if that explained everything. "They love their Aunt Ashley." I looked around the table again, still hoping to see a hint of humor in someone's eyes. There was none. Just expectant faces waiting for my usual yes. "But, that's not fair," I heard myself say, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "I want to celebrate with everyone too. It's Mom's birthday." Emma, my 28-year-old sister, put down her fork with a sigh. "Come on, Ashley. You'll be bored there anyway. It's going to be noisy and crowded." "Bored?" I repeated. "How would you know if I'd be bored?" "Well," she continued, exchanging glances with Sarah, "you're great with the kids. They adore you. And let's be honest, it's not like you need a break from family life." I felt my chest tighten. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sarah jumped in, her voice carrying that condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. "She just means that you don't have children or a husband to get away from. The rest of us, we need this break. You understand, right?" The green beans on my plate blurred as I blinked back tears. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Instead, I quietly pushed back my chair and stood up. "Ashley?" Mom's voice held a note of concern, but not enough to actually stop me. Without a word, I grabbed my purse from the counter and headed for the door. Nobody moved to stop me. Nobody called out. The only sound that followed me was Mom's voice, drifting from the dining room. "Don't worry, she'll be a little offended at first, but she'll come around. She always does." As I walked to my car, their voices faded behind me, already moving on to discussing ski slopes and winter gear. The evening air was crisp against my face, helping to clear my head. 10 years of putting everyone else first, of being the responsible one, the reliable one, and this is what I got in return. The worst part wasn't even the babysitting request, it was the casualness with which they'd assumed I'd agree. The way they'd planned this whole thing without me, using my money, my time, my vacation days, without even asking. As if I was just a resource to be used, not a member of the family to be included. I spent half the night pacing around my apartment, replaying every family dinner, every holiday, every moment when I'd dropped everything to help someone else. The memories came flooding back, each one taking on a new, darker meaning in light of tonight's events. There I was at 16, making dinner while Mom helped Emma with her homework. Me at 18, turning down a spring break trip with friends to watch Sarah while our parents took a weekend getaway. At 21, working 2 jobs during college to help pay for Emma's prom dress. The images kept coming, year after year, sacrifice after sacrifice. "Ashley, can you watch Jason for a few hours?" Emma's voice echoed in my head. "I really need a break." "Ashley, would you mind taking the twins for the weekend?" Michael's familiar request played back like a broken record. "Rachel's overwhelmed with Pete, and you're so good with kids." I'd always said yes. Always. Even when I had important meetings the next day, even when I was exhausted from my own work week. I'd taken pride in being the reliable one, the responsible sister, the perfect daughter. I collapsed onto my couch, the leather cool against my skin. The photo albums on my coffee table caught my eye, family vacations where I was always the one behind the camera, holiday gatherings where I was always in the kitchen while everyone else laughed in the living room. When was the last time someone had asked me what I wanted? "It's not like you need a break from family life." Sarah's words kept echoing in my head. As if my life, my career, my choices were somehow less valid because I wasn't married with children. As if all my sacrifices meant nothing because they didn't fit their definition of what mattered. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I tossed and turned, remembering how I'd worked through college on a scholarship, determined not to burden my parents financially. How I'd started my career immediately after graduation, helping to put both my sisters through school. All those late nights at the office, climbing the corporate ladder, sending chunks of my salary home to help with family expenses. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't a confrontational person, never had been. There had to be a way to resolve this peacefully, to make them understand without causing a family rift. So I did what I'd always done when there was a problem, I tried to fix it. I waited until a reasonable hour on Sunday morning before picking up my phone. Mom answered on the third ring. "Hi, Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've been thinking about the resort trip. Actually, I have a solution. I'll pay for a professional babysitter for all 5 kids. That way, everyone can enjoy the celebration together." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a moment too long. "That won't work, Ashley," Mom finally said, her voice tight. "We can't trust some stranger with the children. They're used to you." "Mom, I want to be part of the celebration too," I tried to explain. "I want to be there for your birthday. I could find a really good babysitter, someone with excellent references." "You know you're not exactly a social butterfly," she cut me off, her voice sharp. "You'd probably be uncomfortable with all the noise and activity anyway. The children will keep you busy, and you enjoy spending time with them. It's perfect for everyone." The click of the call ending echoed in my ear before I could respond. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, as my mother's words sank in. She hadn't even bothered to say goodbye. I was still staring at my phone, processing my mother's abrupt hang-up, when it buzzed again. Sarah's name flashed across the screen. "How dare you," she hissed, before I could even say hello. "Mom just told me about your little suggestion about hiring a babysitter. Are you trying to ruin everything?" I sat up straighter, my sister's hostile tone catching me off guard. "Ruin everything? I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone." "We already have a solution." Sarah's voice rose. "Everything's planned, Ashley. Everything. And now you're being completely selfish, trying to change all our arrangements at the last minute." The accusation hit me like a slap. "I'm being selfish?" "Yes, you are. We've been planning this for weeks. Everyone's excited. The resort is booked, the activities are scheduled, and now you want to throw a wrench in everything because you can't just do this one thing for the family?" My hand started shaking. "One thing? Are you serious?" "You know what? If you ruin this trip for everyone, if you spoil Mom's birthday celebration, don't bother talking to me again." "I mean it, Ashley." The line went dead. I sat there, stunned by my baby sister's threat, when my phone buzzed with incoming messages. This time from Emma. "Family needs to stick together," her first text read. "We all help each other out." Another message popped up. "Remember when I watered your flowers last year while you were at that conference?" And another, "You're good with the kids. They love you. Why can't you just forget about being resentful and think about what's best for the family?" My fingers flew across the keyboard as I replied, "A real family doesn't take advantage of each other. A real family respects each other's wishes and includes everyone in their plans. A real family doesn't manipulate and guilt-trip each other." I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear several times, but no response came. That's when it hit me. The way they'd asked for money without explaining what it was for. The careful way they'd told me to take time off work without mentioning the resort. The casual way they'd announced their plans at dinner, as if everything was already set in stone. They'd planned this all along. While I was working late nights, while I was babysitting their kids, while I was being the perfect daughter and sister, they were secretly arranging this trip. They'd used my money, arranged my schedule, and planned to dump 5 children on me without so much as a conversation. And now that I wasn't playing along with their script, they were trying every manipulation tactic they could think of, guilt, threats, emotional blackmail, to force me back into the box they'd created for me. Something strange happens when you finally see through the fog of manipulation. Suddenly, everything becomes crystal clear. I felt lighter than I had in years. The guilt that had been weighing me down was replaced by something else, determination. I opened my laptop and started searching. Within an hour, I had booked a beachfront hotel in Florida. Nothing too fancy, but it had a balcony overlooking the ocean and was within walking distance to everything I might need. I even splurged on a first-class plane ticket. After all, I had plenty of money since I wouldn't be skiing. The next few days at work were surprisingly peaceful. My family had stopped calling and texting. They probably thought I was home preparing for a week of childcare, maybe buying extra snacks and planning activities. The thought made me smile as I packed my beach clothes and new swimsuit. Taking a tropical vacation in the middle of winter? My colleague Janet asked when she saw me checking the Florida weather forecast. "Sometimes you need to do something unexpected," I replied, surprised by how good it felt to say those words out loud. The morning of my flight, I took one last look around my apartment. I'd cleaned everything meticulously, force of habit, I suppose. The empty fridge, the properly locked windows, everything in perfect order. Just like always, except this time, I wouldn't be here to answer any desperate phone calls for babysitting. As the plane took off, I switched off my phone and tucked it into my bag. No social media, no email, no family drama. Just me, the beach, and a whole week of freedom. The Florida air hit me like a warm embrace when I stepped out of the airport. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, and I could smell the salt from the ocean even from here. My hotel room was even better than the pictures. The balcony offered a perfect view of the endless blue horizon, and I could hear the waves crashing against the shore. That first afternoon, I walked barefoot on the beach, letting the warm sand squeeze between my toes. When was the last time I'd done something like this? When was the last time I'd done anything just for me? I swam in the hotel pool, read a book without interruption, and had dinner at a quiet beachside restaurant where no one needed me to cut their food or clean up their spills. I watched the sunset from my balcony, sipping a glass of wine, without a single thought about bedtime routines or morning schedules. My last morning in Florida, I savored my final moments of peace. I knew I'd have to turn my phone back on eventually, face whatever chaos I'd left behind. But I hadn't expected quite what I found. When my phone finally powered up, it started buzzing nonstop. Messages, voicemails, missed calls, hundreds of them. The timestamps showed they started exactly a week ago, early in the morning. My hands trembled slightly as I began scrolling through them. The first messages were from Sarah, "Where are you? We're outside your house." Then Emma, "Ashley, open the door. The kids are getting restless." Michael, "Hey, we brought Tom and Anna like planned. Are you home?" Rachel, "Ashley, what's going on? Pete's asking for his aunt." As I read through the messages, I could picture the scene perfectly, my sisters and cousins, standing outside my empty house with 5 confused children, their suitcases packed for the resort, their carefully laid plans crumbling around them. The tone of the messages changed quickly from confusion to panic. "Ashley, this isn't funny. Where are you? Pick up your phone. What are we supposed to do with the kids? You can't just disappear like this." Then came the anger. Sarah's messages turned nasty. "You selfish witch. How could you do this to us? Emma wasn't much better. I can't believe you're this immature. Mom's birthday is ruined because of you." My Aunt Susan's messages made me wince. I'd never seen her use that kind of language before. "You ungrateful little. You've ruined everything. These children were counting on you." Mom's messages started later in the day. "I'm so disappointed in you, Ashley. I never thought you'd be this selfish. After everything we've done for you." Dad, who rarely texted, had sent just one message: "Your mother is crying. I hope you're happy with yourself." The voicemails were worse. I could hear the anger, the disappointment, the accusations in their voices. Messages from extended family members I hadn't talked to in months suddenly appeared, all of them condemning my behavior. "You've always been so reliable. How could you do this to your own family? Those poor children. You've ruined everything." I sat there in my peaceful hotel room, reading message after message, learning exactly what my family thought of me when I finally stopped being their convenient solution. The words they used, the names they called me, the assumptions they made about my character, it was like meeting a whole new family, one that had been hiding behind fake smiles and casual requests for favors. Without responding to any of them, I packed my bags and headed to the airport. It was time to go home, but I wasn't the same Ashley who had left a week ago. That Ashley might have apologized, might have felt guilty, might have tried to make it up to everyone. But that Ashley was gone. I had just finished unpacking my beach clothes when I heard the aggressive pounding on my front door. Before I could even reach it, I heard a key turning in the lock, the emergency key I'd given my mother years ago, just in case. They burst in like an angry storm, Mom leading the charge, Emma and Sarah flanking her sides, all of them red-faced and wild-eyed. The peaceful feeling I'd cultivated in Florida evaporated instantly. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sarah screamed, stepping forward. "You ruined everything. Everything." I stood my ground, watching them unleash their fury in my living room. The same living room where I'd babysat their children countless times, where I'd cancelled my own plans to accommodate their emergencies, where I'd always been the reliable one. "Mike and John refused to stay with the kids," Emma spat out, referring to their husbands. "They both suddenly had important business to take care of. So Sarah had to stay home with all 5 children while we went to the resort. She missed Mom's birthday because of you. The whole trip was ruined," Mom added, her voice rising. Nobody could enjoy themselves. All we did was talk about how you betrayed us, how you let everyone down. Your father couldn't even ski properly, he was so upset. They continued their tirade, talking over each other, each one trying to outdo the others in expressing their disappointment and anger. The more they talked, the more absurd it all seemed, until something inside me broke, but not in the way they expected. I started laughing. The sound of my laughter cut through their accusations like a knife. They stopped mid-sentence, staring at me as if I'd lost my mind. "What's so funny?" Mom demanded, her face flushing darker. What could possibly be funny about this situation? I wiped tears of laughter from my eyes. Don't you see how ridiculous this is? Do you really not understand how absurd you all sound right now? Absurd? Emma sputtered. What's absurd about? You secretly planned this entire trip, I interrupted, my laughter fading but my voice steady. You decided, without asking me, that I would watch your children. You took my money, told me to take time off work, and then just assumed I would fall in line with your plans. And now that everything fell apart because of your assumptions, you're here calling me the villain? But you've always helped before, Mom said, her voice smaller now, confused. You've never said no. And that's exactly the problem, I cut in. Because I always helped, you started taking advantage of me. You stopped seeing me as a daughter or a sister and started seeing me as free childcare. You stopped considering my feelings, my plans, my life. That's not true, Sarah protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Then why didn't you include me in the planning? Why didn't you ask me if I wanted to go to the resort? Why did you just assume I'd be happy to stay behind with 5 children while everyone else celebrated? I watched their faces, hoping to see some recognition, some understanding of how they'd treated me. Instead, I saw their expressions harden. You're being selfish, Mom said, her voice cold. You've ruined my birthday, you've hurt your sisters, you've disappointed the children. This isn't how I raised you. I felt the last thread of hope snap. No, Mom. You're the ones being selfish. This whole situation is your fault, not mine. Mom drew herself up to her full height, her face like stone. If that's how you feel, then perhaps I don't have a daughter named Ashley anymore. If that's what you want, Mom, I said quietly, then so be it. It's been 6 weeks since that final confrontation in my living room. 6 weeks of silence, broken only by the occasional notification when one of my family members makes another thinly veiled post on social media. Some people only think about themselves. Mom wrote last week, followed by a dozen sympathetic comments from relatives and family friends who only know her version of the story. Family should always come first, Sarah posted yesterday, with a photo of her daughter. So blessed to have people in my life who understand what that really means. Emma's latest was a long paragraph about toxic people who destroy family bonds with their selfishness. She didn't tag me, of course, but everyone knew who she was talking about. A few months ago, these posts would have devastated me. I would have spent hours crafting responses in my head, losing sleep over their words, wondering if maybe they were right. But now? I just scroll past them, sometimes with a small smile at how predictable they've become. I've changed my routine. Instead of spending my weekends on standby for emergency babysitting calls, I've joined a local book club. The first meeting felt strange, sitting in a coffee shop on a Saturday morning, knowing my phone wouldn't ring with a desperate plea from one of my sisters. Last week, I booked another vacation, a trip to Europe in the spring. I didn't have to check with anyone's schedule or make sure it wouldn't conflict with someone else's needs. I just saw a good deal and took it. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I think about my nieces and nephews. I miss them, but not the way they were used as weapons against me. I hope that someday, when they're older, they'll understand. Maybe they'll even recognize the same patterns in their own lives and choose differently. I still have the emergency key Mom used that last day. I should probably mail it back, but something stops me each time I think about it. Maybe part of me hopes that one day, they'll understand. That they'll see how their actions and expectations were unfair, how they took advantage of my love for them. That they'll realize family doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to meet everyone else's needs. But I'm not waiting for that day anymore. I'm not putting my life on hold hoping for their approval or understanding. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first, and it feels right. Yesterday, I deleted the family group chat from my phone. I didn't make an announcement about it or try to explain myself. I just quietly removed myself from one more obligation, one more source of stress. Some might call this selfishness. My family certainly does. But I've learned that there's a difference between being selfish and having self-respect. Sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is step away from people who can't see your worth beyond what you can do for them.
Hello, my name is Macy. I'm a 42-year-old woman who has been married twice. My second marriage has been amazing, but my first was a train wreck. My first husband, Bobby, and I were high school sweethearts, the classic jock and cheerleader couple. We had fun together, and he made me happy at the time. Since he was my first relationship, I went above and beyond for him, believing he was my forever. We planned to attend the same university so we could be together, but in my second year, at 19, I got pregnant. Neither my family nor I was thrilled. My mom frequently warned me that life with Bobby wouldn't be blissful. My family never liked him, though they couldn't pinpoint why, just a feeling that something was off. But as a rebellious teenager, I ignored their concerns, determined to prove them wrong. Our families agreed to support us until we graduated and got good jobs, for which I remain super grateful. Bobby and I got married in court and welcomed our first child. Initially, Bobby was an amazing father, and I felt vindicated. 2 years later, I got pregnant again. By then, I had graduated, but I quit my job to care for our children. Bobby worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Life was tough, but with Bobby by my side, I felt invincible. However, a few months after our second child was born, Bobby's behavior changed. I tried talking to him, but he was unresponsive. One day, after taking the kids for a walk, I returned to find our apartment empty of all of his things. I panicked, and seeing me upset made the kids cry. My calls went straight to voicemail. I rushed to my mother's place with my crying children. "What happened?" my mother asked, alarmed. "I think Bobby left me," I replied, struggling to hold back tears. "What do you mean?" "I took the kids for a walk, and when I got back, all his things were gone. I can't reach him." "Oh no. Do you know why he might have left?" "I don't know. He'd been acting differently for a while, but he wouldn't talk to me. And now this." "Calm down. We should wait a while. If he doesn't come back, we'll file for divorce." "I'll help you out." But I loved him. How could he do this to his children? I know. I wish I could find him and ask him all these questions, but we have to move on. Not just for your sake, but for the kids. My mom was right. I spent the next few months painfully getting over him while raising 2 kids who looked a lot like him. I cried myself to sleep many nights, but eventually, months turned into years and I slowly healed. When the kids were old enough, I told them the truth about their father. They were devastated but surprisingly understanding. Together we learned to move past the pain. My mom was a tremendous help, making raising 2 kids easier than it would have been alone. 13 years after Bobby left, I met my current husband, Fred, at a bar. I was out with friends celebrating a birthday. My mom had the kids, so I decided to have some fun. Towards the end of the night, Fred approached me. My friends had been urging me to date for years, but I was too traumatized by Bobby to try. When Fred came over, my friends left to give us some space. He started by asking if he could buy me a drink. I accepted, not turning down a free drink. We waited until our drinks arrived to start talking. "So what brings you here?" he asked. "It's my friend's birthday. I'm here to celebrate with her." "That's nice. How about I send over some drinks for all of them?" "All of them? There are 7 more people." "It's all right. I'll make up the money I spend here the next 2 hours, so no worries." "Wow, so you're rich? I guess you could say that. I'm not trying to brag though." "No, it's a great thing. Not a lot of people get to do that. And you're not being a prick about it. You're buying drinks for strangers because it's one of their birthdays." "What can I say? I have a weakness for pretty women." "You're so weak you believe everything they say, even lies." Yes, although did you lie? No, it really is one of their birthdays. But it's concerning that pretty women make you weak. You should get that checked. Maybe you could help with that. If I had a pretty woman by my side, I'd only have a weakness for one. I could think about that. It was such a self-esteem boost to be called pretty by Fred, especially since he looked gorgeous, like someone who belonged on the cover of Vogue. I was also surprised by my ability to flirt back casually, something I wasn't usually capable of. Being an introvert, it was either the drink or Fred's captivating aura that made me feel comfortable enough to be flirty. Eventually, my friends came to get me, but not before I profusely thanked Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers, and from then on, we were constantly talking. It started with texts, then calls whenever we have free time or something interesting to share. We also began meeting up more often. Initially, we met in public places, but as months passed, we started hanging out at each other's places. I remember my jaw dropping when I walked into his house. It was literally a mansion. Fred laughed at my shock and told me I should get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. He was very open about wanting to marry me and often told me how comfortable he felt around me, which only made me love him more. Fred was also open to me having kids. He was particularly upset when I told him about Bobby and went above and beyond to show me how much I meant to him. Fred and Bobby were worlds apart, and it wasn't until Fred that I understood why so many people didn't want me to marry or even be with Bobby. I was glad I got out of that relationship, even though I hated how it happened. Fred helped me heal and forget about it, which I was super grateful for. We only dated a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and flew out all our guests, which was technically just a handful since we only wanted those really close to us. My kids were super happy for me and constantly told me they loved Fred, which in my head was another big win. Life from then on moved smoothly, and every worry I had was eased. Fred helped my kids with their education even though I insisted I could handle it. He showed me that he accepted us as a package deal, not just me and then my kids. He had my kids' rooms decorated to their liking even before we moved in together. Fred did everything Bobby didn't and more, which was a true point of healing for our small family. Our family grew from there. Fred and I had a child of our own, yet he never treated my kids differently. About a year after Fred and I got married, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which was another turning point for our family. After that, we became one big family. We did everything families did, going out to eat, going on vacations, and doing fun things together. I was also doing well in my career, and Fred's company was thriving. There wasn't a single thing in my life that was wrong. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello? Look who it is, it's Macy. Who was this? Don't you recognize me? It's Bobby here. How are you doing? Bobby? What the hell? How did you even get my number? I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and thought I'd give you a call to see how life has been treating you since you left me. Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble, and both you and I know we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word. Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do. You are a piece of work. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you know what good it has done me to have left you? I swear it was the best decision of my life. Are you being serious right now? Yes, I married this really rich woman who had kids, but I was willing to overlook that because of her money. She got me this amazing job that pays me so much. I'm living my absolute dream. So you abandoned the kids you did have to father someone else's kids. You gotta do what you gotta do, am I right? Please never call me again. Goodbye. I was stunned by the pure audacity of that man to call me just to brag about his new rich lifestyle. A part of me wanted to keep the conversation going so I could find out where he was and punch him. But I was overwhelmed with so many different emotions that I could barely think straight. After I cut the call, I felt so much hurt, not for me, but for my kids. My poor kids grew up for most of their lives without a father because he was too busy fathering his new wife's children. I knew it was a struggle, but what did he expect? We were only high school graduates when we had our first child. Where in the world would we have gotten money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgust. He was the classic definition of a sleazebag. He clearly wasn't one to give someone attention unless they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. That chapter of my life had been closed long enough, and I never wanted it reopened. I told Fred about it later that night. He was understandably upset but also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I got a call from another unknown number. It was Bobby again. At this point, I was beginning to get frustrated. He called to brag again about his luxurious lifestyle. He told me all about the new expensive car he had just bought and how his kids were doing amazing at school. I didn't bother to be polite this time and just hung up on him. That did not stop him. He kept calling every week to tell me about his expensive purchases. I kept blocking each number he used, but it seemed like he kept using different numbers to call me. Eventually, I stopped picking up. It seemed like he derived some sick pleasure from bothering me. One particular day, I was at work and already stressed when Bobby called me again. "Oh hey Macy, can't you just leave me alone?" "Oh come on, I'm making up for the lost time." "Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you, and neither do I. Leave me alone." "You know you love it, Macy." "I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new life." "Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous I'm living a life that you'll never be able to live?" "I can assure you I'm not." "Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous." It was such a self-esteem boost to be called pretty by Fred, especially because he looked like he belonged on the cover of Vogue. I was also surprised by my ability to casually flirt back with him. I was usually very introverted, so I don't know if it was the drink or Fred's aura. But I felt comfortable enough to be flirty. Eventually, my friends came and got me, but not before profusely thanking Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers, and from then on, we were constantly talking to each other. It started with texts, then calls whenever we had something interesting to share. We also started meeting up a lot more often. At first, it was in very public places, but as months went by, we began hanging out at each other's places. I remember the way my jaw dropped when I walked into his house. It was quite literally a mansion. Fred laughed at my shock and told me I should get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. Fred was very open about wanting to marry me. He told me countless times how he had never felt so comfortable around anyone aside from me, and that only made me love him more. Fred was also more than open to me having kids. He was particularly upset for me when I told him about Bobby. Ever since then, Fred went above and beyond to show me just how much I meant to him. Fred and Bobby were worlds apart, and it wasn't until Fred that I understood why so many people didn't want me marrying or even just being with Bobby. I was glad that I got out of it, but I hated the way it happened. Fred helped me heal and forget all about it, for which I was super grateful. We only dated a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and flew out all our guests, who were just a handful of our closest friends and family. My kids were super happy for me and constantly told me they loved Fred, which was another big win. Life moved on very smoothly from then on. Every single worry I had was eased. Fred helped my kids out with their education, even though I told him I would take care of it. He showed me that he accepted us as a package deal, not just me and my kids. He had their rooms decorated and set up to their liking even before we moved in together. Fred did everything that Bobby didn't and more. That was a true point of healing for my small family. Fred and I had a child of our own, and he never treated my kids differently. About a year after Fred and I got married, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which was another turning point in our family. We became one big family, doing everything that families do, like going out to eat, going on vacations, and doing fun things together. I was also doing well in my career, and Fred's company was thriving. There was not a single thing in my life that was wrong. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello. Look who it is. It's Macy." "Who is this?" "Don't you recognize me?" "I don't think I remember much. Anyway, who is this?" "It's Bobby here. How are you doing?" "Bobby? What the hell? How did you even get my number?" I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and thought I'd give you a call to see how life has been treating you since you left me." "Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble, and both you and I know we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word." "Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do." "You are a piece of work. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you know what good it has done me to have left you? I swear it was the best decision of my life. Are you being serious right now? Yes, I married this really rich woman who had kids, but I was willing to overlook that because of her money. She got me this amazing job that pays me so much. I'm living my absolute dream. So you abandoned the kids you did have to father someone else's kids. You gotta do what you gotta do, am I right? Please never call me again. Goodbye. I was stunned by the pure audacity of that man to call me just to brag about his new rich lifestyle. A part of me wanted to keep the conversation going so I could find out where he was and punch him. But I was overwhelmed with so many different emotions that I could barely think straight. After I cut the call, I felt so much hurt, not for me, but for my kids. My poor kids grew up for most of their lives without a father because he was too busy fathering his new wife's children. I knew it was a struggle. But what did he expect? We were only high school graduates when we had our first child. Where in the world would we have gotten money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgust. He was the classic definition of a sleazebag. He clearly wasn't one to give someone attention unless they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. That chapter of my life had been closed long enough, and I never wanted it reopened. I told Fred about it later that night. He was understandably upset, but also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I got a call from another unknown number. It was Bobby again. At this point, I was beginning to get frustrated. He called to brag again about his luxurious lifestyle. He told me all about the new expensive car he had just bought and how his kids were doing amazing at school. I didn't bother to be polite this time and just hung up on him. That did not stop him. He kept calling every week to tell me about his expensive purchases. I kept blocking each number he used, but it seemed like he kept using different numbers to call me. Eventually, I stopped picking up. It seemed like he derived some sick pleasure from bothering me. One particular day, I was at work and already stressed when Bobby called me again. "Oh, hey, Macy. Can't you just leave me alone?" "Oh, come on, I'm making up for the lost time." "Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you, and neither do I. Leave me alone." "You know you love it, Macy." "I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new life." "Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous I'm living a life that you'll never be able to live?" "I can assure you I'm not." "Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous. I just got a promotion. I don't give a crap." "You know you're jealous. I just got a promotion at Digidome, one of the finest media companies." I'm going to hang up. I was furious and annoyed, but something he said kept tickling my brain. I was way too angry to think about it at that moment, so I let it go. When I got back home, I thought about what it was that Bobby said that tickled my brain. Then it hit me. He said he worked for Digidome, one of the finest media companies, which I had to agree with. They were responsible for hiring and recruiting some of the most talented influencers and journalists in our city. The reason I kept thinking about it was because Fred is the CEO and founder of the company Bobby was working for, my husband. I could not believe how wonderfully the universe had aligned for me. That meant I could finally teach Bobby a good lesson, not only for bothering me, but also for abandoning his children. I waited with excitement until Fred got back home. When he did, I told him all about what had happened during the day. "Did something happen? Why do you seem so hyper?" "Nothing happened per se, but I did find out something big." "Oh, what is it?" So Bobby called again. That sick son of a gun. I swear, if I had any way to get a hold of him, I would beat him up real good. That's the thing. He may be way closer than we ever expected. Huh? What do you mean? Well, today he called me to brag about his big promotion at work, which is at Digidome. You mean to tell me that he works at my company? Yeah. At first, I couldn't help but think his company name sounded really familiar, and then it hit me. Did you really not remember the company I created? Listen, I was way too angry to remember my own name. Cut me some slack. I'm kidding. Anyway, do you want me to fire him? Absolutely. But before you do, I was wondering if there was any way to humiliate him. Definitely bold of you to think that I wasn't going to fire him in the worst way possible for him. With that, we began planning how to create the best revenge plan. We decided to wait a few more weeks before executing our plan to fire him because we were going to record his calls to me and have them played in front of everyone. The company was going to hold a huge event in 2 months, and to our luck, Bobby was going to be in charge of it. There were going to be several big names present, and we were going to tarnish his reputation. Over the next few weeks, I picked up all of Bobby's calls without getting frustrated or angry. Knowing I had the biggest upper hand was enough to put a smile on my face as I listened to him ramble about his wealth and my lack of it. This time, I made sure to record every conversation. These conversations were going to come back to bite him hard, and I couldn't wait for it. At the end of the 2 months, the event happened. I originally didn't plan to go because I didn't like big crowds or having to talk to a lot of people, which was why no one really knew who the big boss's wife was. However, this event was where I would make my appearance. I wanted to see Bobby's fall while I sat on the throne. Fred bought me this gorgeous and very expensive dress, which I wore. I stayed in the car until Fred called me because we didn't want Bobby to see me and make a run for it. I only entered when Fred gave his speech in which he told everyone he wanted to introduce his wife for the first time. When I walked up on that stage, Bobby was standing there. I saw his face drop and pale. I smirked at him as I walked by, and he pulled out his handkerchief to dab the sweat all over his face. Fred then went on to praise me, talking about how much of an impact I had on him these past 7 years and how it had been a joy to raise my kids with me. With every praise Fred aimed at me, I saw Bobby sweat even more. I beamed with pride as the crowd clapped for me. Then Fred's speech took a turn. He began to talk about how I had been getting harassed by my ex-husband recently. He told the crowd about how my ex-husband had abandoned me and my kids to father another woman's children just because she had wealth. But the universe had different plans for my ex-husband because he was working for his company. The crowd gasped and erupted into murmurs about who my ex could have been. Fred asked everyone to quiet down and told them he was going to reveal who it was. Bobby kept looking toward the exit, but he knew that if he dashed for it, Fred wouldn't even have to reveal who it was because he would have outed himself. Fred then pointed towards Bobby and told everyone it was him. The crowd once again erupted in murmurs. Bobby looked like he was about to pass out, but Fred wasn't done yet. He told everyone he had proof of all of this and proceeded to play the recordings of all the calls Bobby had made to me in the past few weeks. Bobby stilled as he heard everything. Fred then announced that because of everything Bobby did, he would no longer be working with his company. The crowd cheered for Fred and me as we walked off the stage. Bobby was escorted out of the event, and the rest of it went smoothly. I had served my revenge, and there was nothing sweeter than that. Fred and I had a blast at the event, and I even managed to find someone who offered me a position at their firm. The day after the event, I got my last phone call from an unknown number. "You're awfully bold to call me again after last night. You tricked me." "Whatever do you mean? You absolute witch. Don't play stupid with me. How could you not tell me that you were married again? And that too, married to my boss." "Like I told you several times, Bobby, I simply didn't care about you." "I know that, but the decent thing for you to do was to inform me. So you would only stop harassing me if you knew who my husband was. If my husband wasn't your boss, you would have continued to do it. Don't twist my words." "I'm not twisting anything. You want to talk about being decent, Bobby? The decent thing you could have done was not abandon your family. If you could do something like that, I can do something like this. Have fun with your current family, and I hope you find a new job." "I don't have a current family. My wife left me because of yesterday, and she took the kids. It's all because of you." "I didn't do anything. You did this to yourself. If you had just not called me, your life would have been what you always wanted it to be. But I guess you can't have your cake and eat it too. Goodbye, Bobby, and good luck." It felt liberating to finally get back at Bobby and know I destroyed everything good in his life. I hope Bobby learns never to mess with me or my family again because he will never get anything good out of that. Fred and I continue to thrive together, and our kids have grown into wonderful adults. My life is once again going smoothly, and I no longer stress about Bobby's calls. I'm finally vindicated and feel lighter than I have for the first time in a long while. Thank you for listening to my story. Hey, I'm Meredith, a new mom to a beautiful 4-month-old daughter named Hope. She means the world to me. Hope arrived during a time when I felt incredibly vulnerable and in desperate need of support. It's been 8 months since I lost my husband, John. We were married for almost 2 years, and he was truly the love of my life. He was my first real relationship, and I always hoped he would be my last. He will forever hold a special place in my heart. When I was nearing the end of my second trimester, everything seemed to be going smoothly. John and I were over the moon about our upcoming baby. It felt like our family was finally getting that one missing puzzle piece. But then tragedy struck, and John was taken from me in a car accident. Identifying his body was a gut-wrenching experience, and I felt like my world had crumbled. I fell into a deep depression, hitting rock bottom. My parents, who lived in another part of the state, rushed over to support me as much as they could. They stayed with me for as long as possible. Then my best friend, Vicky, stepped in to help me through this incredibly tough time. They became my lifelines after John's passing. John's parents, Lindsay and Farrell, had always been kind and loving towards me, considering me part of their family. However, things took an unexpected turn one day after John's death. Vicky had moved in with me temporarily until the baby arrived. I was almost a month away from my due date, and given everything I had been through, being alone wasn't the best idea. One day, out of the blue, Lindsay and Farrell showed up at my place. It was a surprise visit, though they had been visiting frequently. Vicky wasn't home, and I was by myself. "Hey Meredith, it's us." "Hello guys, how are you holding up?" "We're managing." "Where's Vicky?" "She's out grabbing groceries. Peanut butter and pickles cravings, you know." "Oh, I remember those strange cravings. Pregnancy does funny things to you. Thanks for coming over. I miss John so much, but having you here helps. I feel closer to him when you're around. You were everything to him, Meredith. We are here for you, and soon you'll have your little one here. Speaking of which, how are the preparations for the baby going?" "Vicky has been a huge help. The nursery is ready, and we're just counting down the days now." "John would have been so happy. I wish he could be here for this. Speaking of the future, there's something we'd like to discuss with you." "Sure, what's up?" "Well, you know there might be some money that used to belong to John." "Okay, go on. What about it?" "We actually need that money now." "Wait, what? Why?" "See, that money was sort of ours to begin with. We put it into John's upbringing and education." "Seriously? And you want it back? But that money is for me and my baby." "Let me explain, dear. John might not have mentioned it, but we see that money as something we invested in him. We even paid half of his college tuition as his birthday present. We raised him and supported his education. It was a present. You shouldn't have expected to get it back. Anyway, I'm pregnant, not working, and I need that money for the baby. We need the money to take care of things at our house too, you know. And I would have loved to help you, but the truth is I will be raising this child as a single mother. I've got my own financial responsibilities to handle. I really need that money now more than ever." "You're being selfish and greedy. I bet you're secretly relieved that John is gone so you can have all the money for yourself. You pretend to be all concerned about your baby, but God knows what you're going to do with it. How could you even say something like that?" I couldn't hold back the tears. I was utterly stunned by their behavior. 2 years of marriage, and this is how they treated me just because I refused to give them the money that legally belonged to me after John's death, especially when I was pregnant. It was unbelievable, and their words hurt deeply. I would never wish anything bad upon John. I decided that I didn't want Farrell and Lindsay anywhere near me. When Vicky returned, I told her about everything that had happened. She agreed with me. With Farrell and Lindsay out of the picture, it was just Vicky, my parents, and me looking out for each other and my upcoming child. It was a really rough time during the final stretch of my pregnancy. My mom came to stay with me. She's a devout woman and suggested we go to church one Sunday morning to pray for the baby's well-being. I agreed, so off we went. As we stepped into the sacred space, guess who we bumped into? Farrell. Of all people, he was volunteering at the church. My mom sensed things could get awkward, so she recommended we keep our church visits short and sweet. We prayed for the baby and left. When the service ended, and before we could make a quiet exit, Farrell approached us. "Hey, Meredith, can we chat for a sec?" he asked. "Sorry, Farrell, but my daughter doesn't want to talk to you," my mom interjected. "It's all right, Mom. What's up, Farrell?" "Look, I'm sorry about the other day. Actually, both of us are. You know, Lindsay called you and all." "Yeah, she did. I received all her voicemails. While she's regretful for what she said, it wasn't cool, and she didn't mean any of it. She's having a tough time dealing with losing John, and she kind of lost it. So could you maybe think about giving us another chance? What she said was way out of line, you know." Yeah, we get that. We said some messed up stuff too. But can we try to make things right? Maybe give Lindsay a call. All right, I'll consider it. I went back home and mulled over what Farrell had said. It occurred to me that they had lost their son. It wasn't just me who had lost their husband, so I decided to give Lindsay a call. Hey, Lindsay. Hello, Meredith. How are you holding up? Well, with the baby due in a month, it's getting more nerve-wracking by the day. I remember those days well. They can be incredibly daunting, especially considering John's passing. You didn't just lose your husband. You lost the father of your child. I'm truly sorry for my words the other day. You always brought happiness to my son. I appreciate your apology. I'm sorry for not returning your calls earlier. Your grief over losing your son is just as valid. Meredith, you're still a part of our family. I've been thinking, despite your reservations about a baby shower, how about we host a small gathering at our place? It would only include us and a few of our close family friends. I'm not sure if it's a good idea. It's getting quite late in the pregnancy. Don't worry, Meredith. We'll take care of everything. Consider it a gift from us to you. Well, okay, I'm in. I'll send you the details via text. It was a really sweet gesture from Lindsay to organize the baby shower, even though I hadn't initially wanted one. I talked it over with my mom, and she thought it was a nice idea too. The next day, Lindsay texted me asking for a guest list, and the number of people attending was set. The baby shower was scheduled for 2 days later. She told me to dress nicely, relax, and just enjoy the party at her place. Honestly, I was looking forward to it. We hadn't done anything fun since John passed away. I sent her the guest list and went shopping for a maternity dress with my mom. When the day of the baby shower arrived, I went to Lindsay and Farrell's place. It was beautifully decorated with balloons and flowers. My friends had also gathered there. Little did I know that Lindsay would turn the baby shower into a cry-fest for me. The issue arose because I invited one of my male friends from school, Chris, to the event. He had also been at John's funeral and was friends with him. He came up to me. Hey, Meredith, how are you holding up? Chris, it's been a roller coaster, but I'm hanging in there. Thanks for being here. Of course, I wouldn't miss this for the world. You're looking great, by the way. Thanks, Chris. It's been a tough few months, but I'm excited to meet my baby soon. John would have been thrilled. I know he would have made an amazing dad. Yeah, he would have. It's hard knowing our child won't get to know him. He'll live on in your hearts, Meredith, and in this little one. You're right. I promise I'll be there for you and your baby. Thank you, Chris. That means a lot to me. Chris was just being friendly. He was married, and there was absolutely no sort of flirting going on. But for some reason, Lindsay heard us talking and got fixated on this. She pulled me aside into her room, saying she wanted to talk. I can't believe you're throwing yourself at Chris like that when he's clearly into you. What do you even mean? Do you think I haven't noticed? It's been 8 months since we lost John. How can you even think of this? Chris is just a friend. He was even friends with John, and now he's chatting you up. What a great friend, huh? He has a wife, and you have the baby of your dead husband in your belly. That isn't stopping you. What? First you take our money, and now you're disrespecting our dead son. I feel so sorry for him. You don't know what it's like losing a child, but I hope you do. Do you even hear yourself? You better keep your little one away from me. I quickly wiped my tears away and decided to bail from the baby shower without making a scene. Leaving Lindsay's place, I felt a mix of sadness and betrayal. Seriously, how could she say those things about me and my baby? It was like she had turned into a monster. I was terrified of her. My mom, who could tell something was up for my face, came over worried. A few days later, she wanted to know what happened at the baby shower and why I had left so early. I didn't want to spill the ugly details, so I just said, it's the pregnancy hormones, Mom. I'm all right. But deep inside, I was far from all right. The argument had really shaken me, and I decided to keep all the hurt and nonsense to myself. A week later, Lindsay's name popped up on my phone. I couldn't help but feel anxious after what went down at the baby shower. I had no idea what Lindsay could want now. It was a text. I'm really sorry for what happened at the baby shower, Meredith. My emotions got the best of me, and I said things I shouldn't have. I overreacted and deeply regret my words. Of course, I'd love to be a part of my grandchild's life. So here's my offer. When you're ready to welcome the baby, please drop me a message. I'd be crushed if I didn't get to meet the little one. I chose not to dwell on Lindsay's message. Forgiving her for her earlier accusations was enough for me, but her hurtful comments about the baby remained a nagging thought in my mind. I decided to set it aside as I had more pressing matters to attend to in the coming days. Then the long-awaited day arrived. My water broke and labor pains set in. My mom called Vicky to drive us to the hospital. I was admitted, and the whole delivery process began. Finally, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl and named her Hope. I couldn't help but notice how she had inherited her father's nose and lips. John's memory lived on through her. After spending a night at the hospital, the following day arrived and my emotions swelled. I wished John could be there with me, and it hit me hard. In a moment of overwhelming emotions, I decided to call Lindsay and Farrell. I just needed some connection to John, even if it was through his parents. Lindsay was super thankful on the phone, saying thank you a gazillion times and assuring me that she and Farrell would be at the hospital within an hour. After that call, I sent my mom and Vicky home to freshen up, deciding to catch a quick nap until Lindsay and Farrell arrived. When I woke up, I was met by a surprising sight. Farrell was standing right in front of me, but Lindsay was nowhere to be seen. As I glanced around, I realized that Hope, my precious baby, was also missing from the room. I panicked. "Where's Hope? Where's my baby?" I cried. "Calm down, Meredith," Farrell said. "Where did Lindsay take her? Please tell me she's with Lindsay." "Yes, she is. Lindsay was here just a minute ago before you woke up. She took the baby with her. Can you please ask Lindsay to bring her back into the room?" "Not yet." "What do you mean? Let's get started. I want to assure you that your daughter is fine for now." "What kind of sick prank is this? I trusted her and let her into the delivery room, and she does this." "Shush, shush. It's not a prank. Now listen to me and don't say a word until I'm done. Lindsay took the baby with her. I can't tell you where, but don't worry. You need to do something for me. Transfer all the money to my account now." "What's all this craziness for? Money? I want my baby back. I will call someone." "Try to shout, and I will text Lindsay. I can't assure your daughter's safety if you do." "All right, get me my phone. I will transfer everything I have to you." I took my phone, and my hands were shaking as I transferred the money to Farrell's account. Farrell checked his phone. "That's like a good daughter-in-law. Could you please call Lindsay and tell her to bring Hope back?" "Okay," I said, my voice trembling. Farrell left the room, leaving me with a lot of questions. Where was he off to? What did he plan to do with my little girl? Given my weakened state from the blood loss, I was terrified and desperate for answers. I couldn't move on my own. Frantic, I called Vicky and recounted the horrifying situation. She assured me that she would be there as soon as possible. Anxiety gripped me tightly as I sat in a room, helpless, waiting for Vicky to arrive. About 20 minutes later, a nurse entered the room, cradling Hope in her arms. Relief washed over me as I was finally reunited with my baby girl. "Wait, where was she? Is she okay?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Don't you know? She was with your mother-in-law. She just brought your daughter to me and told me to give her to you." "Do you know where she took her? Is she all right?" "I thought she was in the nursery, but I'm not entirely sure. Don't worry, your daughter is perfectly fine." "Oh, can I have her now?" "Of course." I held my precious baby girl close, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Vicky arrived not long after, and I shared the entire incident with her, not holding back. I even confided in her about the uncomfortable situation at the baby shower. Vicky was furious. A few days later, I was finally given the green light to go home. With everything out in the open and my mother having returned home, I made a significant decision. I couldn't let my in-laws get away with what they had done. They had taken my daughter from the hospital, even if it was just for about 45 minutes. After everything that went down, I knew I had to take some serious action. I hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but Chris. Our first move was to gather any evidence we could find. Hospitals usually have security cameras everywhere, and we thought they might have captured what really happened with Hope and Lindsay. Chris worked his magic, and soon we were watching the security footage from his office. We could see Lindsay holding Hope and leaving the hospital. The timestamp on the video was crystal clear. My baby was taken away, even if just for a short time. It was a cold, hard fact staring us in the face. The video also showed Lindsay returning to the hospital later with Hope. This footage was gold for our case. Then there was the timing of the money transfer. It was the puzzle piece that clicked perfectly into place. The money moved when hope was taken. Chris built a solid case, making it clear they messed up big time, and no one could ignore the evidence against them. Before I decided to bring in law enforcement to make this a full-blown legal case, I felt the need to have a conversation with Lindsay and Farrell. Vicky agreed to look after Hope while I went over to their place to confront them. "You seem to be enjoying that money I transferred, don't you?" I began. "That money is ours now. Get over it," Farrell sneered. "You not only manipulated and blackmailed me into giving you what was rightfully mine, but you also kidnapped my daughter. Do you know that is a crime?" "Kidnapping is a strong word, Meredith. I just took her out for some fresh air, you know." "Lindsay, it's hard to understand your intentions. First, it's all about John's money. Then, at the baby shower, you accuse me of disrespecting him. Can you pick a side? Aren't you tired of playing the victim, the mother who lost her son, when all you seem to care about is the money? If John were here today, he would be ashamed and disgusted by you and what you did to me and his daughter. He would never have forgiven you. John's gone, Meredith. He's history. We couldn't care less. Time for you to get your pathetic life together as well." "What a remarkable father you are, Farrell. If this is about money, you better leave. I only dropped by to give you a heads up. You'll be hearing from the cops soon enough, so better call your lawyer, Lindsay." As time ticked on, things started to look up. Lindsay and Farrell got what they deserved. The evidence was stacked against them. The security footage from the hospital and the timing of the money transfer all pointed to their guilt. Justice was served with a side of karma. They ended up in prison for a year and had to pay back every single cent they took from me. It wasn't just a win for me, but for Hope and John's memory too. With the money safely back in my account, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I sold our house, full of memories both good and bad. It was tough saying goodbye to that chapter of my life, but it needed to be done. I didn't want to live in the shadows of the past anymore. I moved to a snug neighborhood close to my parents' place. Having real family nearby was a game changer. I decided to put my experiences to good use. I joined support groups for single moms who had been through similar things. Being there for them helped me heal too. Every day is a new chapter in this single mom's journey. I wake up motivated to be the best mom I can be for Hope. I'm determined to provide Hope with a loving, stable, and happy life. Recently, I've been contemplating a career comeback now that I have my parents to look after Hope. I'll be diving into that soon. Each day as we create new memories together, I'm reminded that we can find light even in the darkest of times. Hope has brought warmth and purpose back into my life, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Hello there, I'm Stacy, a 37-year-old wife and mom. My husband Eric and I were hosting a family event at our home to welcome back none other than the infamous Uncle Isaac, my brother-in-law, after his 5-year stint in the slammer. Yes, you heard that right. Prison, the big house. But before you start judging him and our family, know that Isaac had been falsely imprisoned. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. It took 5 long years of fighting for his case to finally be reviewed properly and for him to be exonerated. You can imagine the excitement in the air as we prepared to reunite the family. The party was in full swing, and everyone seemed to be having a grand old time. Isaac was, of course, the center of attention, catching up with everyone and regaling us with stories from his time behind bars. He had a special bond with my daughter Wendy, who used to be close to him before the unfortunate incident that led to his incarceration. Laughter and animated conversations filled the house, and the aroma of delicious food permeated the air as we indulged in a feast fit for a king. It was a rare moment of joy and togetherness for our family, and I relished the warmth it brought to my heart. After the event, as everyone left, we were still buzzing with excitement, grateful to see Isaac alive, happy, and well after his unjust imprisonment. Life resumed its usual rhythm, and it seemed like the storm of family drama had subsided, at least temporarily. However, the elation following Isaac's return was short-lived. A couple of days after the event, as I sat in a living room engrossed in a book, Wendy burst through the door with a look of fear and anger etched across her face. Startled, I quickly put my book aside and rushed to her side. "Wendy, what's wrong? You look terrified. Talk to me." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she gasped for breath. "Mom, I found a camera. a hidden camera in one of my plants. My heart skipped a beat and a wave of dread washed over me. A hidden camera in my daughter's sanctuary? Anger surged within me, but I had to remain calm for Wendy's sake. We made our way to her room, my mind racing with a million thoughts and questions. Sure enough, there it was, concealed amidst the lush foliage of her favorite plant. A tiny camera peering into her private moments, violating her sense of security. How long had this camera been there? I felt a mixture of disgust, fear, and anger bubbling up inside me. Without wasting a moment, I called Eric, my voice trembling with a mix of emotions, and relayed the horrifying news. Eric, you won't believe what I just discovered. There's a hidden camera in Wendy's room. We need to do something about this now. His voice held a mix of concern and fury. I'll be right there, Stacy. We're not going to let this go. Our daughter deserves her privacy, and whoever is responsible for this will face the consequences. As we waited for Eric to arrive, Wendy clung to me, her tears dampening my shirt. She blamed herself for not noticing the intrusion sooner, but I reassured her that it wasn't her fault. I vowed to stand by her side and get to the bottom of this unsettling ordeal. When Eric finally joined us, his eyes mirrored our emotions, a simmering rage masked by a controlled exterior. We examined the camera meticulously, looking for any clues that could lead us to the perpetrator. It was a violation of trust that cut deep, and we were determined to uncover the truth. The invasion of our sanctuary shattered the illusion of safety we had built around our family. We had to act swiftly, not only for our daughter's well-being, but also to protect our sense of security. If Wendy found one camera in her room, who knows how many other cameras could be lurking around our home? We won't rest until we find out who did this, Wendy. Don't you worry. Thanks, Mom. If you don't mind, could I please take a nap in the guest room? I don't feel comfortable in mine, and I'm exhausted right now. Of course, my baby. Do what makes you feel comfortable. I'm so sorry. Wendy trudged to the guest room, undoubtedly wanting some alone time after her privacy had been invaded so maliciously. Who would do such a thing? We'll review the footage, gather any evidence we might find, and involve the authorities if necessary. No one messes with our family like this. Although I was shaken, I found solace in our united front. Eric and I sat down in the quiet of our living room, the weight of the situation hanging heavy in the air. Our minds swirled with thoughts, trying to piece together the puzzle of who could have planted the hidden camera in Wendy's room. As we explored the possibilities, one name surfaced and lingered. Isaac. I began cautiously, trying to keep my voice level. It's hard to ignore the timing. The camera was most likely planted during the family gathering, and who had the opportunity? Isaac. Stacy, you can't seriously think Isaac would stoop so low. Yes, he made some mistakes in the past, but he's not a creep. He's my brother, for crying out loud. I understood Eric's reaction. Family ties run deep, and the idea of suspecting one's kin of such a violation is unfathomable. However, I couldn't ignore the pieces of the puzzle that seemed to align with Isaac's presence during the family gathering. Prison changes people, and the prolonged interactions between Wendy and Uncle Isaac were ringing alarm bells in both Eric and me, even if Eric was too stubborn to admit it. Gathering my thoughts, I spoke gently but firmly. Eric, I know it's difficult to consider, but we have to face the facts. He spent a significant amount of time with Wendy during the gathering, suggesting somewhat of an interest in her. And let's not forget that he just came out of prison. People change, and their actions can be influenced by their experiences. It's our responsibility to protect our daughter, even if it means questioning those closest to us. Eric's shoulders slumped as the weight of the situation bore down on him. He looked torn between loyalty and the cold hard facts. Slowly he nodded, his voice tinged with a mix of resignation and discomfort. I don't want to believe it, Stacy, but you're right. The timing is uncanny, and it's hard to ignore. We need to find out the truth for Wendy's sake. The thought of confronting Isaac about this betrayal gnawed at our conscience, but it had to be done. The sanctity of our home and the well-being of our daughter depended on it. As we prepared ourselves for the difficult task ahead, we promised each other that we would approach this with caution and compassion. We needed to uncover the truth, not only for our peace of mind, but also to protect Wendy from any further harm. Days turned into nights, and Eric remained torn between loyalty to his brother and the unsettling suspicion that hung in the air. The weight of the situation pressed upon us, straining our relationship with Isaac and casting a shadow over our family. As we navigated the treacherous waters of uncertainty, a plan began to form in my mind. A risky yet necessary plan to catch the culprit red-handed. I approached Eric with my idea, explaining that hosting another family gathering might be the key to uncovering the truth. Think about it, Eric. Whoever planted that camera would most likely seize any opportunity to retrieve it. This event, purely meant for family togetherness, presents the perfect chance for the culprit to strike again. Eric hesitated, his emotions still tangled in a web of conflicting loyalties. But as I laid out the logic and the urgency of our situation, he eventually agreed that we needed to exhaust all possibilities before involving the authorities. It was a difficult decision, but one we had to make to safeguard our family and restore our sense of security. I picked up the phone and dialed Tina, number, Isaac's wife. Hey Tina, we were thinking of hosting another family get-together. Just wanted to see if you and Isaac would be available. Tina, response was almost too enthusiastic. She eagerly agreed, expressing her excitement for yet another family gathering. It struck me as a bit odd, considering she was normally the reserved type, but I pushed those thoughts aside, attributing her behavior to a genuine love for family bonding. With a plan set in motion, Eric and I busied ourselves with the preparations. Our home once again became a hub of anticipation and unease. Every nook and cranny was checked and rechecked for any signs of intrusion. We aimed to create an atmosphere of normalcy, hiding our true intentions beneath layers of hospitality and warmth. The stakes were high, and the fate of our family hung in the balance. As the day of the gathering approached, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and determination. We were walking a tightrope, unsure of what awaited us at the other end, but we were ready to face it head-on to protect our daughter and ensure the sanctity of our home. The day of the gathering arrived, and the familiar faces of our family members filled our home once again. The air crackled with anticipation, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. Uncle Isaac, ever the charismatic figure, greeted everyone with his charm. But his warmth was met with icy reserve from both Eric and me. Our suspicions hung heavy between us, casting a somber shadow over the event. To ensure Wendy's safety and protect her from any potential harm, we made the difficult decision to keep her away from the gathering by sending her on a sleepover at a friend's house. We assured her that it was for the best, not revealing the true nature of our fears. With her absence, our focus sharpened, and we resolved to keep a vigilant eye on anyone venturing in the direction of Wendy's room. As the party swung into motion, laughter and conversation filled the air, camouflaging our underlying mission. Eric and I played the role of gracious hosts, all the while scanning the crowd for any signs of suspicious behavior. Our sleuth game was on point. The night progressed, the rhythm of music and dance providing a backdrop to our hidden agenda. Amidst the festivities, I couldn't help but notice Tina's peculiar movements. She frequently excused herself, disappearing into the bathroom with a sense of urgency. My instincts sharpened, and I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that something was amiss. Curiosity getting the better of me, I decided to approach Tina. As she made her way towards the bathroom once again, I followed discreetly, my heart pounding in my chest. To my surprise, instead of entering the bathroom, she veered off into Wendy's room. Panic welled up inside me, and I knew I had to confront her to uncover the truth hidden within the depths of her actions. Stepping forward, I called out her name, my voice holding a mix of accusation and concern, mirroring the conflicting emotions swirling within me. Tina, what are you doing in Wendy's room? Startled Tina turned around, her eyes darting around the room searching for an escape, but there was nowhere to hide from the truth. The silence between us grew heavy, pregnant with unspoken accusations. I asked you a question, Tina. What are you doing in my daughter's room? Tina, composure cracked and tears welled up in her eyes. Her voice trembled as she stammered. I was just looking for Wendy. I was surprised that she didn't join us for the festivities this time. You were looking for her in her drawers, I said, my voice laced with incredulity. Tina looked down to find her hands still firmly planted in the drawer she was rummaging through. I can explain. Save it. The one person we least expected, the one we had defended vehemently, had betrayed our trust. The room spun with a mixture of disbelief and disappointment. At that moment, I beckoned to Eric, who was not too far from me, and he hurried over, assuming that we had caught Isaac in Wendy's room. His jaw dropped when he saw that it was Tina. You planted that camera, didn't you? Why, Tina? Why would you do such a thing? Eric wasted no time and called Isaac over to Wendy's room, his voice firm and commanding. Isaac, sensing the urgency in his brother's tone, hurriedly made his way to the room, confusion etched on his face. "What's going on?" he asked. As Isaac entered the room, his eyes fell upon Tina, tears streaming down her face. Before he could utter another word, Eric quietly closed the door behind us, shielding the rest of the party from the unfolding drama. I took a deep breath, my voice steady as I began to explain everything. I recounted the shocking discovery of the camera in Wendy's room, the hidden invasion of our privacy that had shattered our trust. My words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of the truth. We organized this gathering, Isaac, to catch the person responsible for planting the camera, and in all honesty, we suspected you initially. I'm so sorry, bro, I never should have doubted you. I just thought, with prison and all. Stop, it was mainly me who accused you, Isaac. I'm so sorry, but after I caught Tina, in here, I knew that you had nothing to do with it. Isaac's brows furrowed, his eyes flickering between Eric, Tina, and me. Confusion lingered in his gaze as his mind tried to grasp the gravity of the situation. He turned to Tina, seeking answers. Tina, why were you in Wendy's room? What's happening? We found Tina, rummaging through Wendy's belongings. She was the one who left the camera in there. Now that everyone was present, I looked at Tina and demanded, Tina, you need to explain yourself. Why would you do something like this? Tina, shoulders slumped as she looked at us, the weight of her actions clearly bearing down on her. Through her tears, she began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. I had did it because I was jealous. Wendy is such a bright, beautiful girl, and seeing how everyone loves her, especially Isaac, I felt invisible. I thought if I could find something to tarnish her image, maybe I would feel better about myself. But I know now how wrong I was. I'm so sorry. The room fell into a stunned silence. The magnitude of Tina, betrayal and the pain it had caused was immense. Despite the hurt and anger, Eric and I knew we had to address this with compassion for the sake of our family. We'll need to involve the authorities, Eric said quietly, but first, we need to make sure Wendy is safe and knows that none of this is her fault. Isaac looked at Tina, a mixture of sadness and disappointment in his eyes. We'll get through this, but you need to understand the gravity of what you've done. Tina nodded, her tears flowing freely now, as she began to comprehend the full extent of her actions. The road ahead would be difficult, but our family's bond was strong, and we were determined to face it together, to heal and protect each other from any further harm. Tina, eyes darted around the room, seeking solace in her husband's support. But Isaac's face mirrored the shock and confusion that had gripped the room. He couldn't fathom why Tina would resort to such invasive measures, especially against her own family. Fine, you caught me. Yes, it was me who left the camera in Wendy's room. I was coming here to retrieve it. We know that. We caught you. We just want to know why, I demanded. It's because I'm jealous, okay. Tina. Confession hung in the air, her motives laid bare for all to see. She admitted, with a mixture of shame and frustration, that her actions stemmed from jealousy of Wendy. She had noticed Isaac and Wendy conversing frequently during the previous family gathering, which ignited the spark of envy within her. She questioned what made Wendy so special, what drew Isaac's attention and affection towards her. Isaac couldn't help but interject, his voice laced with both defensiveness and genuine concern. Tina, you know I love Wendy, but not in a creepy way or anything like that. Being an uncle is important to me. I was simply checking up on Wendy, making sure she was doing well. It was out of love and family concern, nothing sinister or inappropriate. You know that. Oh yeah, then why were you always praising Wendy, going on and on about how amazing she is and how well she's doing in school? It made me wonder what was so special about her. So you're acting crazy because I'm a proud uncle. Tina, tell me, is there something wrong with being a proud uncle? I have every right to appreciate and support Wendy. It's not about favoritism or anything more than genuine love for my niece. I didn't think that you feel this way, Tina mumbled. Trying to navigate through the tumultuous emotions in the room, I directed my attention to Tina. What were you hoping to uncover by planting the camera? What did you expect to find exactly? I just wanted to see how Wendy lives her life. Maybe if I could understand her better and emulate her actions, I could gain the same praise and attention from you, Isaac. I wanted to feel valued like her. You're jealous of a teenager. How low can you sink? This is beyond messed up, Eric said, his voice filled with disgust. After a silence that could put a library to shame, Eric decided to pull the plug on the party. It was a good call. The last thing we needed was to keep a party going after discovering Tina, true nature as the resident creep of the year. With the room now cleared of all the relatives, it was just Eric and me left to grapple with the aftermath of Tina. Little escapade. It wasn't a pretty sight. I let loose on Tina, unleashing a verbal barrage that could make a sailor blush. Who does that? Who plants a damn camera in their niece's room? Sick in the head, that's who. Isaac stood there like a lost puppy, disappointment etched all over his face. I guess he couldn't fathom what kind of twisted game his beloved wife was playing. Can't say I blame him. I might be equally dumbfounded if my better half turned out to be a grade A lunatic. As the dust settled and our emotions ran dry, Eric and I found ourselves sitting in our once cheerful home, now tainted by the sinister acts of one family member. The next day, when Wendy came home, it was my job to spill the beans, to expose the whole twisted truth. Wendy's eyes welled up with tears as I recounted the heinous violation of her privacy. The poor girl, innocent and unsuspecting, couldn't fathom that someone in our own family could stoop so low. Trust shattered. Her world turned upside down in an instant. She managed to choke out the words, her voice trembling with hurt and confusion. Mom, I never thought that anyone would do this to me. Tina? Seriously. I shook my head, unable to wrap my mind around it. Believe me, Wendy, none of us saw this coming. Tina, gone off the deep end for sure. With Wendy in my arms, her tears staining my shoulder, I made her a promise. We're going to fight back. Pressing charges is just the beginning. Tina needs a reality check, and we're more than willing to deliver it. Her tearful gaze met mine, seeking reassurance. But Mom, what about Uncle Isaac? How is he doing? I sighed, the weight of our shattered family hanging heavy in the air. If I'm being honest, he's not taking it well. He feels like he can't truly celebrate his freedom, knowing that he's married to a nut job. So what does that mean? Is he getting a divorce? I don't have baby. Oh, I hate what she's done to this family. Same. Right now, our priority is your safety. We're getting a restraining order against Tina, so she won't even dare to think about crossing your path again. We're in the process of pressing charges and obtaining a restraining order against Tina, the camera-wielding menace. Meanwhile, the once inseparable bond between Isaac and our family remains strained, shattered by the weight of this unimaginable betrayal. It's a painful and awkward silence that hangs between us, a reminder of the depths to which one person's jealousy can sink. But through it all, we remain steadfast, determined to rebuild, to heal, and to find solace in the love and support of those who truly matter. The road to recovery may be long and arduous, but we are ready to face whatever lies ahead, armed with the knowledge that our family's strength will prevail. I grew up in a middle-income family. Both of my parents had decent jobs, but they had 6 mouths to feed, themselves, me, and my 3 siblings. So we struggled a bit. Hand-me-down clothes were normal, and we often ate frozen and cheap meals. We only had a house because my grandmother left it to my dad. We lived in a nice neighborhood with families ranging from middle to high income. When I was born, the house next to ours was empty for a few years until a new family moved in. They had a son, John, who was my age. He was the only kid in the neighborhood my age, so even though he was homeschooled and I went to public school, our parents made sure we hung out together. His parents welcomed me, and John and I became close friends. Since I went to public school, I helped John learn to socialize with kids his age. His dad, William, appreciated this a lot, even though he didn't say it directly. Instead, he would send me home with food for my family and buy us small gifts. John's mom, Margaret, didn't like me as much. She thought William was too nice to me and not nice enough to their son. She made snide remarks and tried to stop William from giving me things. But he wouldn't listen and sometimes gave me even more just to spite her. This caused a lot of fights between them, which made John withdraw more. After months, I got him to open up to me when we were 13. We grew closer over the years, and I developed feelings for him, but never acted on them. When we were 17, John came to my house looking very upset after a huge fight with his mom. He told me she had said something really hurtful, but he couldn't bring himself to tell me what it was. I comforted him and reminded him to not let his anger ruin his relationship with his family, not knowing the full truth of their situation. After high school, we both went to the same college. I attended classes while John did distance learning. I had saved up enough money from working since I was 16 to rent an apartment with a bit of help from William. This allowed John and me to spend more time together without our parents around. Eventually, we realized we had strong feelings for each other and started dating. My parents were thrilled, while John's parents had more neutral reactions. William calmly congratulated us, and Margaret grunted in disapproval. We decided not to focus on his mother's reaction. After graduating college, John proposed to me and we got married within the year. I felt like I had won at life. My childhood best friend was now my husband. He was there for me from the start, and I loved him deeply. After we got married, John traveled a lot for work. He didn't want me to be alone, so he asked me to move in with his parents. I was hesitant because his mom never liked me, but John convinced me. I don't know about moving in with your parents. Your mom's never been a fan of me. I know, but we'd have our own space, a whole floor to ourselves. I want you to be safe, and being with my family will put my mind at ease. It's almost like living alone. They could visit, or I could visit them if they want. All right, if it means that much to you, I'll give it a shot. But I hope it doesn't make things worse. Thanks, babe. I promise I'll do my best to make sure everything goes smoothly. I knew his reasoning made no sense, but I agreed to make him feel better. Plus, my parents lived next door, so I could always go there if things got tough. The next month, we moved in with his parents. Quickly, I realized John hadn't been completely honest. I wasn't going to be alone with his parents. I'd be alone with his mother, Margaret, whenever John went on business trips at his dad's command. This meant I was stuck with the woman who hated me for days or weeks at a time. Margaret mostly made rude comments and sometimes didn't make food for me, even after asking what I wanted to eat. I'd usually be too tired from work to care. So I'd make a quick meal or order in. As long as I stayed in my room, nothing major happened. One day, John called and asked me to find a file in his office and scan it for him. While searching through his messy drawers, I noticed one felt different. It had a false bottom. Curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it to find a paternity test. It showed that William wasn't John's father. I was shocked. I never questioned John's paternity because he looked just like his mother. I wondered if William knew. Before my thoughts spiraled further, I took a picture of the test, put everything back, found the file John needed, sent him the scans, and went to my room. I spent hours trying not to think about what I'd just learned. I wanted to talk to John, but I preferred to do it in person. Just as I started to calm down, Margaret knocked on my door. "Come in." She entered with a scowl. "Yes, how can I help?" "Spare me the act. I know you found out our secret." "What are you talking about?" "Don't play games. I saw the false bottom open. I know you read the document." "Fine, you got me. But tell me, does William know?" "That old geezer doesn't know a thing. If he did, we'd be on the streets. All he ever wanted wasn't here. I got away with John not being his only because John looks like me. How could you deceive him after all he's done for you?" "Spare me your moral judgments. I'm not the only one betraying him. John's in on it too. He's used to this lifestyle and won't let it go." "That can't be right. What if I tell William everything?" "Oh please, you think you can ruin our game of pretend? I'd make William believe you're lying to cause chaos. He'll choose us over you any day. You won't get away with this forever. The truth will come out. Save your fairy tales for someone who cares. Good luck with that." She walked out, and my heart pounded. Margaret had answered all my questions. I was disgusted with both of them. How could John deceive the man who raised him? How long had he known? Did he feel any remorse? Would he go along with Margaret's plan to leave me? I barely slept that night, consumed by my thoughts. The next day passed in a haze. William had returned from his work trip, and I couldn't look him in the eye because of how guilty I felt. I wanted to tell him everything, but I knew that if I tried, Margaret would find a way to turn the tables on me and make me the bad guy. That night, William asked the three of us to have dinner together. I silently ate my food except when William asked me questions about work. At some point during dinner, Margaret brought up wanting to go on a vacation with John. William, I've been missing John, and I think it'll be a great idea for us to go on a 2-week trip to Italy together. John has been working hard. He does deserve a break. Doesn't John have a lot of work commitments? I mean, I'm no expert, but won't his absence affect the business? Please, William managed the business for years before John joined. A short break won't hurt. That's true, and John could use some time off. All right, you can go, and I'll handle things here. Thank you, dear Maria. Why don't you join them? Oh, that won't work. It's supposed to be a mother-son bonding time. Besides, I feel like a third wheel. Well, what do you think, Maria? Would you like to join them? Oh, she probably has her own plans. Don't worry about her. Let's allow Maria to make that decision. I knew why Margaret wanted to go on this trip. I was about to say that I wasn't okay with it, but I felt a sharp kick in my shin. I winced in pain as I realized that Margaret had kicked me under the table. I looked at her and noticed her sharp glare. I wanted to tell on her so badly, but I knew it wouldn't lead anywhere. Then I had a brilliant idea. I could use their time away to tell William everything. So I shut my mouth and nodded that I was okay with the trip. Margaret looked satisfied, and William told her she was free to go. That night, I called John and asked him about the trip. Are you going on this trip with your mother? Yeah, I don't really have a choice. That's not true. You do have a choice. You can choose not to go along with her plans. Everything is so messed up, and honestly, a lot of it is because of you. What do you mean? How is any of this my fault? If you had respected my privacy back then, none of this would have happened. There's a reason I didn't tell you about everything. When did you even find out you're not William's son? Remember a couple of years ago when I came over to your place really distressed because of a huge fight I had with my mom? Yeah, she dropped that bomb on me during that fight. Did you consider telling William about it? I did. I even threatened her to spill the secret, but she laughed it off, saying if I told William, he'd throw us out. So we're stuck keeping this secret. Now that you know, I can't keep you around anymore. Did our relationship mean anything to you at all? Of course it did. But when you found out about the secret, I knew I had to let you go. Your strong conscience could ruin everything I've been working for. With that, he hung up the call. I couldn't believe this was the man I had loved. Was this always a part of him, or had he become this way out of greed? I cried myself to sleep that night, feeling betrayed and heartbroken. How could he let go of me so easily? I had treated him like the most precious thing, while he saw me as disposable. I woke the next morning fully ready to take revenge. John had returned home that morning and silently packed his bags for his vacation. He and Margaret were set to leave in the afternoon. I didn't spare him a glance. My heart hurt, but I knew I was doing the right thing. William had gone on another short business trip for the next 2 days, so I had to wait for him to come back to start my plan. After John and Margaret left, I busied myself by looking through their stuff. Unsurprisingly, the false bottom in John's drawer was empty. Margaret must have gotten rid of the file. It was okay though, I had a picture of it. I waited to collect evidence of what John and Margaret were up to, and sure enough, John posted stories on his private Instagram account, which only his closest friends and family followed. He posted stories of him going on dates with multiple other women and even posted a story thanking his mother for introducing him to so many wonderful women. Even though my heart was breaking and anger was boiling under my skin, I took screenshots of every story. Then I called William and told him I had an emergency and needed him home immediately. William assured me he would be home by nighttime. True to his word, he showed up by 9:00 p.m. He hurried over to me and asked if everything was okay. I told him that I was not okay and revealed the real reason why Margaret and John had gone on that trip, to find John a new wife. William looked shocked and asked if I was serious. I showed him the screenshots. William's shock turned to anger and disgust. He stuttered as he asked why they would do this. I told him I had something important to tell him but needed him to sit down for it. He sat down and fearfully asked what I had to say. I took out the printout of the picture of the paternity test and showed it to him. William sat there silently for a while, processing what he was reading. I gave him some time before telling him everything I had found out in the past few days. William's hurt turned to anger. Without a word, he called up his banks and canceled his credit cards, knowing that Margaret and John depended on them for their travel expenses. He also canceled John's office card, so they had no money that way either. Once he was done, William felt slightly calmer. I apologize for throwing everything at him at once. I'm so sorry, William. None of this should have happened. There's no need for you to apologize. I never imagined Margaret could go to such lengths. I'm glad this revelation happened while I'm still in control of the business. What are your plans now? I'm worried John and Margaret might try to come back. I've made up my mind. I'm going to divorce Margaret and remove both of them from this house. I'm with you on the divorce. I'll also file one against John. I'll move out too. No, Maria, you're not going anywhere. If you're willing, I'd like to pass the business down to you. I've always seen you as a daughter, and I trust you to carry on her legacy. William, I don't know what to say. I'd be honored to continue what you've built. That's settled then. We'll make this right together, Maria. The days after that were filled with sadness and anger. William filed for divorce, and so did I. Margaret and John tried contacting us, but neither of us picked up the calls or answered the texts. William managed to pull some strings and got us both restraining orders against Margaret and John. When the calls got too annoying, I finally picked up. What the hell did you tell my dad, Maria? I haven't said anything to him. Then why are his cards canceled and our numbers blocked? What have you done? I didn't tell him anything. I just showed him the proof. That's impossible. I burned it all. Not everything. I had enough evidence. I took a photo of the document you thought you destroyed. You're heartless for doing this to us. Huh? You're the heartless one. You and Margaret chose to keep this secret from William. You have to face the consequences of your actions. You're tearing our family apart. No, you're doing it. It's the truth that's finally coming out. It's time to take responsibility. I hung up the call and blocked John and Margaret. In the weeks that followed, William and I sent our divorce papers to our respective partners. William had all of John's and Margaret's things packed and put away in a storage facility. He gave them 1 month to show up and take their things, or they would have to pay to keep their belongings there. I quit my job and began focusing on working with William. It was hard for both of us to forget everything that had happened. But we knew that at the end of the day, we still had each other. I began to enjoy work, and the benefits I got from working with William were only a bonus. So that is my story. Thank you for listening till the end. I hope that no matter what life throws your way, you always remember to do what's right, because you never know how life will reward you. Hello, wonderful folks. I'm Victoria, and I'm one of the older members here. I see many of you sharing stories about your horrible mothers-in-law, and I feel for you. I was fortunate to have an amazing mother-in-law and always strived to be like her. So when my son Daniel introduced me to his girlfriend, Melissa, I was warm and welcoming. As a middle-class widow with no one except my son, I was excited to welcome Melissa into our family. However, she wasn't interested in having a relationship with me. I tried to arrange lunches and dinners, but she always declined, saying we had different tastes. Victoria, I don't think it's a good idea for us to go out, Melissa would say. It's okay, Melissa. I know I'm old, but I can still adapt. Maybe you can teach me a few things, I responded, hopeful. It's not about your age, Victoria. It's about your class. You're just a poor old lady comfortable with a trashy lifestyle. I'm not so cheap as you. I'm just glad Daniel didn't turn out like you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dated him. My parents and I belong to the upper class, and I just can't mix with anyone beneath us. I hope you understand and stop trying to get close to me. It just won't happen. To say I was hurt would be an understatement. I had hoped for a good relationship with my daughter-in-law, but she thought I was beneath her. I lost my husband at a young age and raised my son alone. I never remarried because my husband was everything to me. I remained poor but did my best to give Daniel everything he needed. He is a great son who made it big in the world and often offered to help me, but I always declined. I was content with my life. Still, Melissa's words stung, and I never tried to ask her out again. After Daniel and Melissa got married, things worsened. She slowly excluded me from their lives, never inviting me to their events. I missed my son's promotion celebration, their anniversaries, birthdays, and other gatherings. My son expressed his disappointment with his wife and even considered separating from her because she had become controlling and didn't want him to stay in contact with me. I advised him not to make any rash decisions and to give his wife a few more chances. Separation was off the table soon, as Melissa became pregnant with a daughter. But even after that, nothing changed. She excluded me from the baby shower and gender reveal and didn't let me meet the baby at the hospital. I never complained because I didn't want to cause trouble. For 6 years, I continued to be excluded from my own son's family. I did manage to have a great relationship with my granddaughter, but Melissa began to put a stop to that too. I was at my wit's end and suspected Melissa was planning something drastic. My suspicions were confirmed when Daniel showed up at my house looking very downcast. "Daniel, you don't look well. What's the matter? Is something going on?" "Mom, I just can't do this anymore. I've tried everything, but things are only getting worse. I can't even talk to you without worrying about starting a fight at home." "Is Melissa creating problems again?" "Daniel, it's breaking my heart to see you like this. You don't have to come to see me if it means your troubles will get worse." "Mom, I need you in my life. I don't like the way Melissa has been trying to control me. I've been unhappy in this marriage for a long time now. I never thought she would create a divide between us. I even overheard her talking to her sister about how she planned to stop you from seeing my daughter." I was taken aback by Daniel's words, though not entirely surprised. Melissa had been acting very strangely, always making excuses when I asked to see my granddaughter. I had even offered to come by and see them, but she was always either busy or out with the baby. It was already suspicious, and now I was very anxious about what Melissa had planned. "Daniel, did you confront her about this? What does she even have to say for herself?" "Mom, what can I say to her? I always suspected Melissa was going behind my back, making decisions without consulting me. If I question her, she just screams at me and throws things. It traumatizes our daughter as well. That is not okay, Daniel. Look, if you don't want your child around me, I would understand. There can be many reasons why you might feel I shouldn't be in your daughter's life. I will respect your wishes." "Mom, are you crazy? Why would I ever do that? You are the best grandma and the best mother ever. I have absolutely no reason to stop my daughter from seeing you. Hell, my daughter would be devastated if her mother went through with this plan." Daniel looked stricken with grief and anger. It broke my heart to see my poor son suffering so much. He had truly made a big mistake in choosing his life partner, and I wish I had warned him. I didn't want to meddle in my son's relationship, so I kept my mouth shut. I didn't protest when Daniel pulled away from me because of his wife. I wanted him to be happy, even if it meant losing contact with him. Had I known what a horrible situation my son was in, I would have helped him sooner. I comforted him and said, "Daniel, ignoring these problems and remaining quiet is not a solution. You are clearly miserable and need help. You need to stand up to your wife for a bit. If she loves you, she will be willing to change." "Mom, that is never going to happen. I've begged her multiple times to get help. I suggested couples counseling and other things, but she just doesn't listen to me. I did my best, but I think it's time to cut my losses. I only see divorce as the ultimate solution. I think you should consider all aspects before you make a decision. Why don't you go home and try to talk to Melissa one last time? After that, I will support whatever decision you make." Melissa was a pretty wretched woman, but she was still Daniel's wife. Even if she didn't like me, I would have been happy if my son was happy. But Melissa had been really toxic towards my son, which became clear to me that day. I believe everyone should be given a last chance before being punished for their actions. For their child's sake, I hoped she would come to her senses and improve her behavior. My son was desperate for a change. I will give her one chance. I'll talk to her and lay down my terms. If she doesn't listen and tries to cut you out again, I will file for divorce. I'll talk to a lawyer and have the paperwork ready. I will only file if and when she messes up. Promise me you will let me know if that happens." "I promise I will let you know, Daniel. I can see that you are extremely unhappy and I feel really bad for you. I don't want you to live like this. If Melissa doesn't improve her behavior, I'm afraid it will start to affect my granddaughter as well. That is exactly why I have been considering divorce. You asked me to give her one chance, so I'm doing that. But if she tries to act smart, I won't have any second thoughts." I agreed with Daniel because I really didn't want him to be unhappy. If Melissa continued to be uncooperative and entitled, he deserved to separate from her and live a healthy life. I wanted my grandchild to have a healthy home life as well. Daniel went home and talked to his wife about their problems. To no one's surprise, she blew up at him, calling him names and accusing him of choosing his mother over her. They had a massive fight. However, this time things turned out a little differently. Melissa saw that Daniel wasn't backing down or caving into her demands. He was adamant about standing up against her, which was a big blow to her. Daniel later told me, "Melissa didn't expect me to stand my ground, Mom. I think that's part of the reason why she asked for a second chance and promised to improve herself. She even promised not to cut you off from our daughter." It sounds too good to be true, Daniel. I have this gut feeling Melissa's just lying to pacify you. I won't lie, Daniel, but I feel the same way. Still, she has asked for a chance. Give it to her and wait to see if things get better. I'm doing that, Mom, but I'm also talking to my lawyer just in case. I will get the paperwork done. You don't have Melissa like I do, Mom. I can see right through her. She won't keep her promise to me, I just know it. The weariness in Daniel's voice really did break my heart. For years, I nursed my own wounds caused by Melissa and was unable to bear her behavior. I had no idea how much worse my son had it with her. She had completely broken his spirit and didn't even acknowledge her wrongs. Straight away, Melissa was a heartless woman, and Daniel was right about her. What Melissa did next proved Daniel's fears were justified. About 2 weeks later, I called Melissa to tell her I was coming over. It had been a while since I had seen my granddaughter, and I decided it was time for a visit. I knew they were out of school for summer break and had plenty of time to hang out with me. Plus, Melissa had promised Daniel not to cut me off from my granddaughter, so I didn't need her permission to see them, and she didn't bother to stop me. I thought maybe Melissa was finally letting go of her controlling behavior and whatever anger she had towards me. Oh boy, was I wrong. When I rang the doorbell at my son's house, Melissa opened the door but didn't ask me to come in. "What do you want, Victoria?" "Daniel is not home, and I'm kind of busy right now. I've come to see my granddaughter. It has been a long time since I've seen her. I was missing her, so I thought I would drop by." "I don't think this is a good idea, Victoria. My daughter is not available right now. Sorry to say that you can't see her today." I was a little taken aback to see the same version of Melissa that I saw last time. Daniel had been telling me that Melissa was acting well at home, but he didn't trust her completely. I thought he was being a little paranoid. Nope, my son was right. Melissa showed no signs of change whatsoever. Since I was already at her home, I decided to try my luck again. I said in a serious tone, "Melissa, I know my granddaughter is not at school. Her school is on summer break, and I asked Daniel before I came here. He confirmed that my granddaughter is home." "Well, yes, she is home, but you still can't see her." "What? Why not? You have been keeping my grandchild away from me for a while now. I won't pretend that I didn't notice, but I don't understand what the problem is." "Melissa, you need to tell me why I can't see my own grandchild. Because I don't want you to see her ever again. She's my daughter, and I get to make those decisions as I please, and I've decided not to let her mingle with you anymore." "You are still not telling me why you're doing this, Melissa. This is unfair and unjust both to me and to your own daughter. Don't you dare tell me what's right for my daughter. The reason for you not to see her anymore is simple. My child doesn't need to be around a loser like you." Melissa said this with so much venom that I found myself taking a step back in shock. She straight up called me a loser and told me that my granddaughter shouldn't be associated with someone like me. She made me feel small and unworthy of being in my own family's life. I was humiliated but also extremely angry. I asked Melissa angrily, "What the hell does that mean, Melissa? Why are you calling me a loser and insulting me like this? What makes you think this is okay? You need to explain yourself. Do I need to go into details about how unworthy you are of associating with us? You are a poor woman with no wealth or social status. We have a good reputation in this city, Victoria. Your son works in a high position at his office, and my daughter goes to the most prestigious private school here. I am also a woman of high status. Our family is simply too above you and your trash lifestyle. If anyone had ever told me that people could be so cruel towards their own family, I wouldn't have believed them. But I was wrong about the world. People like Melissa simply didn't care about anything other than material wealth and status. Yes, I was a poor woman. I'm still a poor woman. My son had offered me a lot of things, but I had declined his help. I wanted him to have the best life possible without having to shoulder my responsibilities. I didn't care about my lifestyle at all. I was never interested in climbing up the social ladder and living in luxury. My simple life was good enough for me, especially since I didn't have to depend on anyone. I had no idea that would become a problem for Melissa. I had no idea that my simple life would prevent me from being in my own granddaughter's life. I was shocked and hurt. I said, "What does my simple life have to do with my granddaughter?" I know I can't give her much material stuff, but her dad already does that for me. She doesn't even complain when I don't bring her extravagant gifts. That's the problem, Victoria. I don't want your trash life rubbing off on my daughter in any way. It's already pretty embarrassing that everyone knows Daniel's mom is a freaking loser. If my daughter continues to have you in her life, she might end up being a loser like you. I want her to be successful like me and her father. I can't risk her becoming like you. You were being extremely shallow and unfair, Melissa. None of what you said will happen. My granddaughter needs to have her grandma in her life. You need family too, along with material wealth. She already has a set of good grandparents, Victoria. My parents are rich and come from a high-status family. Their love and influence will be perfect for my little daughter. She doesn't need you in her life, and we don't need you in our lives either. We have plenty of money and connections to have a good life. I was absolutely fuming with what Melissa said. It was at that moment I realized how messed up she was. No wonder my son was at the end of his wits. Since I didn't see Melissa much, I didn't know how shallow and superficial she could be. I was actually thanking my lucky stars that I didn't have to deal with her more than I had. It also made it clear to me how miserable my son really was living with her all the time. Everything that came out of Melissa's mouth sealed my resolve to encourage my son to divorce her. With my mind made up, I smiled at Melissa and gently told her, "I think you are a little wrong in your assumption, Melissa. My son has a lot of wealth, but from what I gather, you don't have a penny to your name right now. You're already drowning in credit card bills." "What the hell do you mean? I'm married to Daniel, so his money is my money too. I have the sole right to owe his wealth. I'm his wife, after all." "Well, you won't be his wife for long, Melissa. Actually, my son is going to file for divorce very soon. I hope you remember that you signed a prenup, and that prenup clearly said that you won't get anything from him in case of a divorce." Melissa looked scared for a while before she schooled her expression back to normal. She looked at me very nonchalantly as if what I was saying was far-fetched and impossible. But I could tell she was nervous, especially because she knew that Daniel had already warned her about a divorce if she didn't behave. She looked at me dismissively and said, "You can dream on, Victoria. Daniel would never divorce me. He won't be able to be without me. I can control him well enough. Did you forget how I made him limit contact with you?" "Yes, you did throw a tantrum to make him limit contact with me, but he only agreed because I wanted him to save his marriage with you. That was actually the first time it hit Daniel what a messed up woman you are. Over the years, all of your controlling behavior slowly made him consider divorce." "Oh, he can consider divorce all he wants, Victoria. I know for a fact that he will never go through with it. He won't destroy our perfect family and leave me destitute." "You can believe what you want, Melissa. Don't say I didn't warn you. I will be leaving today without seeing my granddaughter because I know I will be able to see her soon. As soon as my son divorces you, I will be back in my granddaughter's life. For now, I'll let you have this last power move." I turned around to leave as Melissa went back into the house which soon wouldn't even be hers anymore. I got into my car without any regret and called my son right away. When he picked up, he already sounded weary and resigned. He said in a troubled voice, "Let me guess, Mom. Melissa didn't allow you to see my daughter. She did exactly what she wanted to do and took no consideration of mine or our daughter's feelings." "You're right, Daniel. Apparently, she didn't want her loser mother-in-law to influence her daughter to live like a poor person. So she thought cutting me off would be better and spare your family from the humiliation of having a loser grandma like me." "What the hell, Mom? She said that to you? Oh God, what is even wrong with her? I can't believe she would say these things to my own mother. I'm so sorry you had to hear those things, Mom. I can assure you it's not true. You are the best mom and grandma ever." "I don't think I'm the best mom or grandma, Daniel. I wasn't attentive enough to know how miserable you were in your marriage. If I had known before, I wouldn't have advised you to give Melissa so many chances. I'm sorry for not being a better guardian. I guess you were right. Divorce would be a good move for you. Don't blame yourself, Mom. I was equally responsible for not telling you everything about my life and just going along with Melissa to keep the peace. That won't happen anymore. I will file for divorce today itself. I'm done being manipulated and I'm done raising my daughter in a toxic household. We both deserve better." That night, Daniel showed up at my door with his clothes, and he brought my granddaughter along as well. He had filed for divorce and told Melissa about it. Apparently, Melissa had flipped out and started to attack Daniel for leaving her. She didn't want to get a divorce and lose Daniel's money that she had been relying on. They started off having an argument until it escalated, and Daniel had to call the cops on his wife. Yes, she was hitting him in front of their daughter, who was crying her eyes out. My poor granddaughter was traumatized and was clutching my son because she was scared her father was hurt. What followed after that night was truly shocking. Melissa went to take her parents' help to make Daniel stay. Like I said, she didn't even have the money for a lawyer and thought her parents would be of help. Imagine her surprise when her parents closed the door in her face and told her to never contact them again. Also, she had been disinherited a while back. Now, why did her parents take such a drastic step? Well, they didn't support her entitled and abusive behavior. They were furious with her for hitting my son and traumatizing our granddaughter. Something else came out as well, which they had told us and the CPS workers. Melissa was abusing my granddaughter. She was starving her because she didn't want her to get fat. A lot of other things came out, and Melissa lost custody of her daughter. I won't go into detail about their messy divorce and all the details of abuse that came out in court. I'll just say that they were able to get divorced in a year. Melissa lost custody, and Daniel got my granddaughter full-time. I moved in with him to help out. Both Daniel and my granddaughter are in therapy, and my son actually had a protective order against Melissa for the physical abuse. Shortly before the divorce was finalized, Melissa had shown up at my door to beg me for forgiveness. She wanted my help to get her marriage and child back. Suffice it to say, I kicked her out instantly. Right now, I'm having a good life with my son and granddaughter, who are happy to be rid of that horrible woman. It looks like we will be okay, while Melissa is off working at a convenience store after losing everything and becoming the poor loser she didn't want to be.